Welcome to Cancer and Peace. My name is Sean Stewart. I'm here with an old friend, very, very old friend, Peter Scalzo.
After 99 episodes, right?
At 99 episodes, 20 years of cancer journey, and lots of stories. We are back with part two of the formative years of story work.
Yeah.
As last week you shared an earlier story, like you were 5 years old. And we're going to move forward a little bit this week. And so, but I do want to just really encourage people to listen. And what I really want to do is, you have promised that if we made 100 episodes, you would do that episode in a Speedo. So I'm thinking if that's true, everybody's going to watch this as opposed to just hearing it on the podcast. I'm getting this look like
it's not something people would want to say.
You can show us how your valves and tubing work on the outside.
Yeah, I've got that. I can show them that.
I'm sorry.
The producer seems to be laughing
He
quite
does,
a bit
yeah.
over there. Yeah.
And all the visual images that just happened across our listenership.
That's
that
why Jack
they're turning
is
they're turning
now.
the knob right now. Just we're pushing the stop button. No.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you are still listening or watching, we're gonna go into a story today. Any thoughts beforehand, and not related to Speedos or anything like that you would like to share before we kick off in your story?
Yeah, I think it's with gratitude that I share my life like this. I think it's helpful for me, very much so. And I'm hopeful that people may not be able to relate to a majority of what's in my stories, but perhaps some folks will go on their own journeys of documenting their own stories and doing it within community like we do it. Every Wednesday night, we have our story work time with about 10 guys, 11 guys.
Yep.
Yeah. So, in fact, this episode, like the last one, will be sort of like what we do on Wednesday nights, except with a group of guys.
Yeah, a lot more people listening and providing feedback on the stories. Yeah, and I think what I've found from this is different than what you said, and I'm gonna not to be corrected, but more in the sense of every story that you've shared, I've related to.
Okay. Yeah.
And not because that exact same story happened to me, but because there's something in that story that I can connect with my own journey. And so we see that in recovery all the time. The question that gets asked after somebody shares their testimony is, what did you relate to and why? Not did you relate to anything? It was what did you relate to? Because there's something in everybody's story that is part of the common human experience, I think.
Yeah.
And so don't undersell yourself. There's some. I mean, I don't think that's there's something relatable about everything that gets shared in stories.
Yep. That's
why we do share. We live our lives of stories.
Yeah.
So we're going to kick off.
Okay, ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
Okay. I thought I was a big shot in 6th grade. We were the first graduating class of a brand new elementary school. Everything was new, clean, and top grade. I was 12 years of age. I was a safety on the school bus, wearing my orange belt around the waist and over my shoulder with a badge. I took the job seriously, watching the kids from the back of the bus, trying to keep order. I thought I was tough and in charge. Boy, would this be a switch in just a year, when in junior high, things would change with me physically and emotionally. I would also begin to develop a quietly rebellious attitude, which marked my entire school career up through high school. Back to 6th grade. I was, quote, dating the pretty blonde girl. I still remember her name, and I'm not going to say it. This was the beginning of my life of chasing the pretty blonde. I would become whatever I had to.
Can we call her Bambi?
Okay, Bambi.
Sorry.
The goal was the pretty blonde. I felt good about myself with Bambi. She was the first girl that I really kissed and became sexually excited about. I was just discovering my sexuality. My buddy had introduced me to porn the summer before. That story is for another day. I was also the main drummer for the school and had a special drum set solo with a standing ovation at an assembly. It was a packed auditorium with my classmates, parents, and Bambi looking on. I thought I was on top of the world. I felt like I was on top of my game. Those things that I thought brought me value, popularity, attention, excelling, were at high peak. I was a little more selective academically. When I liked a teacher, I excelled. When I didn't like a teacher, I acted up and didn't put forth as much effort in the class. Since first grade, the same comment would appear on my report cards. Peter comments when unnecessary. The refrain was the same. Peter gets good grades, but his conduct is a problem. Actually, I remember acting up in class solely to get classmates to laugh. It was driven solely by seeking the attention and validation from my classmates. However, if I liked the teacher, I would seek validation from the teacher. In athletics, I excelled in soccer, tennis, and wrestling. I was known by these activities by my classmates. My prowess as an athlete would wane in value starting the very next year as other guys would become bigger, stronger, faster, etc. It was recess. We were playing Kill the Carrier. Remember that game? One boy grabbed the football and ran haphazardly around the field, trying to avoid the other guys pursuing him for the tackle. Usually once the boy was tackled, the rest of us would yell, "Pile up," and just jump on a big pile, with the result of the boy in the bottom getting somewhat crushed. We would laugh so hard. I remember feeling all kinds of pent-up energy, and it felt great to run around, tackle guys, or be crushed at the bottom of the pile. I just loved it. I don't know how it happened, whether it was during a Kill the Carrier game or a King of the Hill game that we played due to a pile of dirt left over from the construction of the school that was right next to the playground. I was in a pushing match with a classmate, John. The other kids formed a circle around us, yelling, "Fight, fight." John was smaller and weaker than me. I had known John since kindergarten. I had nothing to argue about with John. He wasn't a close friend, but he wasn't a stranger either. In fact, he was pretty quiet in school, and there were times that I wanted him to feel included. In that circle, I grabbed John and threw him to the ground. I jumped on top of him. We were on top of the pavement. Everyone was yelling. I shook his shoulders and saw that his head was hitting the pavement. I did it about 5 times, and he was crying. Inside, I was horrified. Why was I doing this? I wanted to cry. I felt so badly for John and what I was doing, but I thought, this is what the kids want. I stopped and got up as boys slapped me on my back. I absorbed the praise, but I immediately thought, I am a monster. Is John okay? I will never fight again. I can't believe I am capable of hurting John like this. I was sad and angry at myself. I was embarrassed. I felt shame. I pretended to be a tough guy, but inside I was hurting. John was smaller than me and weaker. How did he feel? Why would I hurt him? Why would I let a crowd of peers push me to do something against my nature? Was I a bully? Actually, John and I became good friends. That lasted through high school as we went to the same high school together.
That's got some emotion wrapped in it there.
Yeah.
Wow. Just taking a second to absorb the story, because I can sense and feel there's it felt like I could feel 2 warring natures inside of you.
Yeah.
What were they?
I remember the feeling of just do whatever it takes to get the praise of your classmates, whether it was disrupt a classroom or bang somebody's head on the pavement, one of my classmates. And then the other part of my nature, which was more empathic, saying, I wonder how he feels in this, and why would I do this to him? I didn't really have anything against him. but I was doing this to respond.
If you were to ask the story behind the story, what was the real need that was left unmet that you were trying to fulfill?
Well, I think even the acting up in class and just, it was, again, that core feeling of, am I wanted?
Yeah.
I think that's what had sort of developed in my formative years. Although my brother and sisters would probably laugh about that because I was the youngest and spoiled, but according to them. But I think it really stemmed from my dad's response to me. And also we talked about how mom had made some choices too that sort of made me feel that way. But I think definitely that was this core issue for me growing up. I was sensitive. I think a lot of it was I didn't feel wanted.
And is that a legitimate need?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Even now.
Worth hurting somebody for.
Yeah. No, that's... Yes. Now, hopefully I'm in a place where it's not a need that I would hurt someone over.
How did you soak in why did the other kids, why was it okay? How did they respond afterwards? Like you said you got patted on the back, but then that was in the moment.
Yeah.
Like, where does this come from in the sense of, why did they want to see a fight? What was inside of this situation that said...
Yeah. I think
there's something that's confusing. It's like there needs to be something that started this fight, and it wasn't.
Yeah, no,
you were like it happened, and it's like, did it or?
I can't remember the first push or what was happening.
Yeah,
but there was repeated pushing of me and this other guy.
So, would you guess that John had the exact same need that you did?
Yeah, probably. Yes.
And so the competing need for being wanted and attention played out in this playground in a way that you were willing to hurt each other.
Yeah.
To get that need fulfilled.
Yeah. And I think I didn't know why I did the backdrop until kind of now, like painting the scene.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the scene for me paints that I was an attention seeker above everything else.
Bring Bambi into the story. You spent a decent amount of time describing Bambi.
Yeah.
Why is she important to this story?
She was like the pretty girl in the school.
Yeah.
Popular.
Yeah.
And she was sort of the start of my journey into can I get the pretty girl kind of thing. Almost like seeking validation with that also. Hey, look at me.
Who was the person you wanted the most validation for of that group of kids? As you think about it now, who would, was it Bambi or was it some guys? Or
probably Bambi was up there pretty high, but probably my buddies. And
Bambi was there?
Yeah. Oh, I don't remember if Bambi was around that circle. I don't think so. But I don't know. Because the guys were in one section and
she would certainly hear about this.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm asking because you took time to tie into this story, just some references.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the two that you referred to. One was Bambi, and you took time to tie in sexuality. But you never talked about, in this story that happened here, something sexual.
Yeah, I think I was just highlighting where I was at as a 12-year-old. Like, hey, I'm in this place of sort of awkwardness, discovering things for the first time, like being king of the hill at school. And it's like, you know,
yeah.
and it was all going to change in the 7th grade and 8th grade. But
What do you think this story has a sexual component to it?
I don't know.
This
Does
is
it? I don't know.
You know, when we did
Never thought
training
about
on, this is asking a question you already know the answer to.
It is.
Yes.
What is it then? What's the answer?
Yes.
Yeah.
No question that this story has a sexual component to it.
Okay.
And it in some ways it even probably speaks to something that is worth exploring, and that is your family of origin, I'm not trying to overspeak. It's how women relate to you, how the female, like what your thoughts are, what it is that brings desire, what it is that brings connection, and what it means to be a man. But what it means to be a man might be like one of the big ones there. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to say this as a way of thinking about it is when I've been involved with, I think it's like Jay Stringer's work, we'll talk about this, and he wrote a book called Unwanted. And I've listened to so many podcasts. I haven't actually gone through his course there, but one of the things that on some of his podcasts that he shares, which is really good, is like, if you want to understand your own brokenness, follow your fantasies, your sexual fantasies, your all the things that what brings you to. And I know this is Cancer and Peace, and so we're not trying to go too far off kilter here, but we're in a place where you described your 6th grade, and you brought in, hey, all of a sudden sexuality is part of the story, and
right.
And it shows up later in the story. You're beating up a kid to get validation, and the reason for talking about it is all this is interconnected. And you see now in your actions a big need playing out, and the need was the desire was not in itself what was bad. Can you bless the desire?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think that I'm wired as a sexual man and a social man and all that. Yes.
And there's all like part of the desire was to be wanted, though.
Yes.
And so as we grow into adulthood, we find that, hey, being wanted is not just to be wanted in career success or wanted in a community of friends, wanted by our spouse, wanted sexually by our spouse, or all these things. Those are all important emotions, and they're not isolated. And you had this big something that showed up that could show up in something that looked ugly. And my bet is that you shiver at the ugliness of this story. What is the emotion you feel today when you tell this story? What's the biggest emotion that shows up inside of you now?
Confusion. If confusion is an emotion, I'm not sure on the feelings wheel, but anger doesn't show up. Fear doesn't show up. Some sadness shows up. Yeah, some.
Sadness does show up?
Yeah.
What about shame?
Yeah, definitely.
You didn't
shame
mention
definitely
it, though.
shows up. I didn't.
Yeah.
I think I said I felt shame. Or maybe shameful would be.
Shameful, yes.
But I think, I
describe why and where.
Yeah, this was a very significant event for me because I was doing something that was against my nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The warring two natures, yeah.
And I really felt it when I was doing it. I'm like, why am I doing this? In other words, there wasn't, like, I wrestled, I did things like that, but there was, purpose and to what I was doing. This was just me pleasing people and taking a guy who was weaker and smaller and taking his head against the pavement.
Can I put words on this for a second?
Yeah. Yep.
This is a war between Peter's false self and real self.
Okay.
And this particular battle that you describe,
Mm-hmm.
the false self won.
Mm-hmm.
And in that false self, there's going to be deep shame
Mm-hmm.
and the shame and condemnation of the false self winning. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
Is that a fair description of what took place right here in this as a battle at sixth grade of your false self and your real self? And at this point in time in your journey, the false self won this battle.
Mm-hmm.
And did the real self go away?
No.
Yeah. The real self was still there, but it was buried. And I'm going to bet this story buried it a little deeper.
Mm-hmm.
How did you reconcile with John?
I can't remember exactly. I probably told him that I was sorry afterwards, most likely. Pretty quickly, probably, too.
Mm-hmm.
And, I always, it's one of those things where we were friends all through high school, and it's like, why would I even, he wasn't a bully. I might get mad at someone who's bullying somebody else, then I would have almost like cause, you know what I mean? At that age, felt like I'm going to teach the bully a lesson. And I was kind of like looking back, I'm like, am I the bully?
That's what I wanted to touch on.
Am I using force and power here?
Almost from my experience, and I'm not a clinical psychologist or anything like that, but the bullied becomes the bully.
Yeah.
Were you bullied?
Not that I recall.
Yes, you were.
Oh, at home?
I'm not actually trying to point out the moment you were mocked for the real Peter.
Yeah.
You were being bullied.
Okay.
In other words, you had to turn off the real Peter, the sensitive person who cared about others. And when you did, that's the moment you became the bully.
Yeah.
And the moment you can recognize that as you turn off the real Peter, the monster shows up, the false self. It's that the healing comes as you embrace the real Peter is not a bully. He's not uncompassionate. He's not somebody who hits people's head on concrete. The real Peter is this loving, caring guy who will meet people at their greatest need. That's who you are.
Mm-hmm. I think that came out in full force at the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it took all those years.
Yeah, but your whole life wasn't bullying.
No, not at all.
But you can see where your false self all along was influencing things of your life where you were uncompassionate. You were... There were moments that you have to go back, and this is what we do in recovery about inventory, is going back and we make a list of all those we had harmed. It wasn't that your life was a life of harm, but you have harmed people.
Yes.
So have I.
Yeah.
And our goal in recovery as we're going through that, the step is after we've done our inventory and we recognize that we have this list of people we have harmed as we begin the amends process.
Right.
And then it's us getting in touch with our truest self.
Yeah.
The one who has compassion, the one who has emotion, who has the ability to empathize with others and to care for them where they're at. And so, and you've done that well. So if there's anything you can hear from somebody who hears this story is you're not the monster. Mm-hmm. The real you is the 5-year-old we talked about last week who couldn't express his emotions healthily.
Right.
And eventually was trying to get that need met somewhere, and you met it on the playground. Mm-hmm. And when it happened, you felt shame. Mm-hmm. And man, that's a powerful story.
Mm-hmm. And it's like as you analyze it and point it out, it really, what is my reality? Like that, I could feel this kind of thing, but I couldn't call it anything. And I didn't know how to get out of it. But it's this sense of the false self versus the real self.
And the question I'm going to ask you is, and I know you well enough now, I think I know the answer to this, but do you need the affirmation of Bambi to be the real Peter?
Yeah, no.
But I think for a lot of years you did, right?
Yeah.
And so this influenced your adult stories, that you needed Bambi's affirmation.
Yep.
Different Bambis. You needed the Bambis along the way's affirmation, and now you're at a healthy place where, and that's why I think Bambi shows up in this story, is that this is a journey that you're walking along, that, hey, you were meeting that need, even because you talked, it's like your sexual journey was starting with all the things that are happening as you are moving in these adolescence, kind of moments. It's like all this is happening in your body, and it's not disconnected. It's all part of your big story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty amazing. What a great story. I mean, I'm blown away by it as I think about it, and just to be able to enter that moment.
Yeah. And you really are drawing out a lot, which, it's interesting because I think about my marriage in the context of all this, and how Leslie had to deal with the struggle between Peter's false self and Peter's real self.
The war that's happening inside of you.
And she, of course, there's nothing she could have done about it. And, you kind of look back and you're like, well, why couldn't I discovered, or made a decision about, I'm going to put both feet in the real self camp. But it really took the walls for me to say, I'm going to put both feet in this camp.
From my experience, and I'm going to say I can believe this about you.
Yeah.
You didn't even know this war was going on.
Right.
You felt the war.
Right.
But you didn't know.
I felt it.
Like, we just clarified it with words that are crystal clear. This is what's going on. But at 6th grade, the war's happening, but you don't even know it. It's just you have pulled emotional feelings happening both ways, and it's just the weirdest thing. You're just, why do I feel this way and this way at the same time?
And it went all the way back to, well, Dad would do this, but Mom would do this.
Yeah.
And which am I?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all the way through. I mean, it's like starts in the formative years and goes all the way through. And then when I hit the wall of divorce and cancer, it was, no, this is who I really am, and I'm going to put both feet in this camp, which has led me into the areas of cancer support, recovery, story work, just all the different things that I've been a part of.
I think it's led you into
community.
Are much more of the real self, the real Peter, the one that God created, that then that's why you're able to do this podcast today, is that you're able to walk in the real self. You can hear and you can see the shameful part of you, and not let that pull you into the abyss, but actually you can see that as a war. And the truth is that every one of us has a war against the flesh, the sin, and it's usually not coming from a place of just, I want to hurt others. It's coming from an unmet need. And that unmet need feels so strong and powerful that to meet that need seems like the most important thing. And you said early on, it's like there was an unanswered question. Do I matter? And when somebody answers that question, no, the journey to matter, it can look like 1,000 things, but it can be used by evil to have you do evil things to try to matter. And what I think God's done with the wall is brought you into, and let me use all that story for good.
Yeah, and I think as I think back on that boy who became a man, who did life the way he did it, the way I did it. Now as I look back, I have compassion on that person who did that journey, who is doing that journey.
Have you forgiven the boy?
Yeah, that's been a very difficult journey for me as a perfectionist, and and I can honestly say that I have forgiven him.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I did it with my marriage ending also.
if you can't forgive the boy,
Mm-hmm.
this is for our listeners. If Peter can't forgive the 6th grade boy, you probably can't find peace in your life now.
Mm-hmm.
Because you are your story. You are living your story. And if you have a part of yourself that you can't forgive, then you're going to be living a conflicted life. It's the false self, the real self are going to be at war inside of you, and there's no peace there.
Mm-hmm.
They're at war.
Mm-hmm.
No peace.
Right. No
peace comes when you live the real self, and that war it's not that there won't be battle still.
Right.
We battle against our false selves all the time, but it's the more we can live in our real selves, know our story, and know who we are and whose we are, there's peace there.
Yeah. Huge.
So,
huge.
Well, I think we hit our 99th episode.
99.
And that was an amazing story. I have so much more I want to talk to you about, but we're not going to do it on this podcast today. But
I appreciate it.
Man, this was such a great story. And thank you all for listening. And come for episode 100.
I'm not wearing a Speedo.
I can tell you, if Peter does wear a Speedo, I won't be here. He'll be doing
I'll
this,
have it
this
under
alone.
my clothes if I do, but not planning on it. I don't even own one.
We like to joke a lot, but thanks so much for listening.
Okay.
Check out episode 100 coming up.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye now.